everyone, and welcome to this video going over Lesson 8.1, Slopes of Parallel and Perpendicular Lines. Parallel and perpendicular lines have a relationship between their slopes. Remember, slope is rise over run. So we are going to find the slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines and see if we can figure out the relationship. Let's start with parallel lines. In part A, it says, what is the relationship between lines L1 and L2? Well, if you look at lines L1 and L2, it looks like they're never going to intersect. So that tells me that they are parallel. And let's find the slope of each of these lines and determine if we can find a pattern. So starting with the slope of L1. To find the slope, I need to pick 2 points on the line that cross at perfect corners. So look at this point 1 and 2.5. Notice how it crosses at a perfect corner. And this point right here, 3.5. Notice how that also crosses a perfect corner. And I'm going to count the rise and the run. Please be careful. Notice how we're counting. Each box is a half. So it goes a half and then 1. 1.5, 2. 2.5, 3. 3.5, 4. So it really takes 2 boxes to make up 1 unit. All right, to count the rise, I have a half and 1. So that's 1 unit because I have 2 half boxes. And then the run, I have a half and 1, 1.5, and 2. That is my run. To make our slope, we do rise over run. So my slope of L1 is 1 over 2. And remember, we got that because we are counting by halves. And so 2 boxes make up 1 unit. Now let's do the same thing and let's find the slope of L2. So once again, I'm going to pick 2 points that cross at perfect corners, such as 1, 1/2, and 3, 1.5. And I'm going to count the rise and the run. So I have a half and 1, so that's 1 unit. And then I have a half, 1, 1.5, 2. So 2 units. So the slope of L2 is also 1 over 2, rise over run. So what is the relationship between the slopes of parallel lines? They are the same. Parallel lines have the same slope. And this should make sense. If the parallel lines have the same slope, this means that they are rising and running the same amount, and so they are never going to cross one another. If 2 lines have the same slope, this means that they are traveling at the same rate, and they are never going to intersect, and so they are parallel. So if we know that 2 lines have the same slope, such as L3 and L4, we can conclude that they're parallel because they have the same slope. And so that is the relationship of the slopes of parallel lines. They are the same. Now let's look at the relationship of the slopes of perpendicular lines. Remember, perpendicular lines are 2 lines that intersect to form a 90-degree angle. So I'm going to call this line L1 and this line L2. And notice how they intersect to form a 90-degree angle. So this tells me that these 2 lines are perpendicular. And I'm going to find the slope of each line. Remember, rise over run. So let's start with the slope of L1. I need to find 2 points that cross at perfect corners. So for example, 1, 0, and 0, -5. And this time I am counting by ones, so each box is just 1 unit. And so my rise is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. And my run is 1 unit. And so my slope of L1 is 5 over 1. And now let's find the slope of L2. For L2, I need to find 2 points that cross at perfect corners, such as this point, -4, 1, and 1, 0. And notice how if we look at this line from left to right, just like we read a book, reading from left to right, this line is going down. This means that when I count the rise, which is just 1 unit, this is going to be a -1 because the line is going down, it has a negative slope. So the rise is -1 and the run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. So rise over run, the slope of L2 is -1 over 5. These slopes are not the same. Notice how the slope of L1 is 5 over 1 and the slope of L2 is -1 over 5. Not only did we flip the fraction, but we also made one positive and one negative. This is called opposite reciprocal. Opposite reciprocal. To find the opposite reciprocal, we flip it and change the sign. So if it's positive, it becomes negative, and if it's negative, it becomes positive. Let's try some examples. If I gave you 1/2, the opposite reciprocal would be -2 over 1. You flip and change the sign. If I gave you -2/3, I'm going to flip it and change the sign. So the opposite reciprocal would be +3 over 2. Last one, if I gave you the number 4, remember if we ever have a whole number, we can always put an imaginary 1 in the denominator. And if we flip it and change the sign, its opposite reciprocal would be a -1 over 4. And so that is the relationship between the slopes of perpendicular lines. If we know the slope of one of them, we can find the opposite reciprocal to find the slope of the other one. I hope this helps you understand the relationship of the slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines. In the next video, we are going to talk about how we can use this to write equations for parallel lines and perpendicular lines. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in class.